Hi everyone, this is Melody with designbymelody.com here today to share a layout with you. This was made using the Studio Calico November scrapbook kit. This one I have titled The Way to My Heart, and this layout has two photos. They're actually 4x6 photos, which I am going to cut down, but right now I'm just looking through the kit to see what I have that will work. I did not have a plan for this layout, as I don't with most of my layouts. So it kind of just comes together as I go, and you will see that. I'm just kind of trying to figure out whether I want to use the photos completely across the front or how I want to do that. And I really wanted to use this paper, and I think I'll play with this paper throughout all of my layouts that I do with this kit, and you'll see that I actually use it in the out of control layout that I will post if I have not posted it already. I end up using this green, blue, and red paper for that. So I'm just going to fiddle here for a while trying to figure out what I am doing and thinking, and I end up going to this gray cardstock that came in the kit, as well as this red. I actually use a lot of solid cardstock in this layout, and typically I don't do that in most layouts, but I end up doing that in this layout. So I'm going to trim off the manufacturer strip here, as I was still thinking I might end up using this layout. And I'm sorry about the exposure. With this camera, I've noticed that as I move the papers around, the exposure changes pretty drastically with the white balance, but I'm still working on that. So I'm taking the photos, and I'm actually going to trim them down to be about 4x5. They were 4x6, so I'm making up about 4x5, maybe slightly smaller. But I'm going to use them on this red paper. So these are photos that were taken at the State Fair in 2011 here in North Carolina. It's my older sister and, of course, Calen. He was not a year old yet. He would have been, let's see, about 10 months old in these photos. And this was before, let's see, yeah, this was before her son was born, actually. So I'm taking the stamp from this kit. It's the I Love This stamp set, stamp, and I'm just going to use my Versamark ink to make a very subtle pattern on the back of this red cardstock, and I'm just going to do this repetitively, and you will see as I go. I'm staggering the stamp just so I can kind of vary the pattern a little bit, and I'm going to continue doing this until I get a pretty good pattern going here. The way I'm going to lay out my photos will showcase the pattern, and you can see there kind of how it looks, and it will dry so it won't be sticky. But I'm going to put my photos on here so that you can actually read what the stamp says on the red. So I'm just going to continue to do this until I have the pattern the way I like it. Alright, so I skipped ahead a little bit, and I'm just doing the last little bit of stamping, and as you can see here, I didn't do the stamping in the top left corner because that's where my photos are actually going to cover. You could have embossed this with a clear embossing powder to make it a little bit more shiny, as well as have just the slightest bit of dimension, but this red, this Versamark, really showed up well on it, and it continues to stay even as the ink dried. It definitely still had a very distinct stamping on it, so you can definitely read it. Even as you can see it right here in the video, it stays just as dark. Alright, so again, I'm still playing around with the paper, and I'm not sure what I'm going to do. Just cannot decide. I can't settle, and I'm playing around with it, still just debating back and forth, but I really like the way that this gray looks, but I feel like it needs something to break apart the red and the gray. So I'm going to use this star paper. I really like this star paper that came in the kit. I think it's very, very nice. And what I'm doing is I'm trimming it apart. Because I really like it, I don't want to use too much of it for it to be covered by the red. So I'm just going to trim enough to be the top border of the red, so it looks like it's one continuous piece behind the red piece, but it's not. It's conserving my paper here. I definitely think this is one of my favorite papers. I'm probably going to try to, well, I think it's an exclusive paper, but I'm going to keep an eye out for something similar to this at Archivers or online at 2Ps or something like that. There's just certain papers that I really like, and this is one of those. But I really like how the red brings out the red in the photo in Calen's hat, and there are a lot of dark. The picture with my sister and Calen is a very dark picture, so the white from the Stargazer paper and the red kind of bring those colors out. Alright, I'm starting to pull out the embellishments here just to kind of see what goes with what and what we can do here. There was a stamp, a house stamp in the stamp set, which you see over there. I've set it right on top of the corner of that Stargazer paper, but I'm just looking to see what I can put on, so I'm just laying it there for now. I've got this wood veneer banner from the kit, as well as these are a 4x4 cut apart sheet that came in the kit as well. And I really like this one. It says, "You make me joyful." And then I do have these little transparency things that I don't know what to do with those, but I keep trying to use them in my layouts. So I'm going to kind of justify these photos up to the top, and I noticed that that was not on there straight, so I'm just fixing that. So far I'm really liking how this layout is coming together. It's simple still, but I like the colors. I really like the colors of it. I'm just trying to figure out how to put this 4x4 cut apart down here at the bottom without making it look just like a random pieces down here. So I'm pulling out this piece of vellum. It's from the paper company. I believe it's called Raindrops. I'm not sure. I'll put it in the supply list on my blog. It's www.designbymelody.com, and I'll have the supply list for anything additional that I added to the layouts that I did with this kit. This honeycomb paper that you see is actually a silhouette cut that I purchased from Archivers, and it's just on a piece of basil cardstock. I can't remember what color that is, but it's definitely basil. That's what they sell in the store mostly, and that's typically what I buy when I'm there. But it was a 1 12x12 sheet, and I've just been cutting this apart and using it as different layering elements in different layouts. So this is the same. I'm just going to use it in a couple different places. I'm going to use it in 3 different places to make it to where it's kind of a cohesive layout, not just random things all over the place. This is one of the things I'm going to use in 3 different points of the layout to bring it all together. So I'm going to cut 2 more small pieces so that I can layer them in the layout like I mentioned. I'm just trimming up the corners as I cut them off, that way it looks like it was the edge of the paper of the honeycomb. I'm going to mat this cut apart here on this vellum. And I'm also going to trim off the bottom because I do want it to appear as if it's hanging off the bottom of the layout. It's too big for it to be there completely, so having it hang off the bottom fits well. So this is looking good to me, and I played around just for the slightest moment there with using these little pieces and making a kind of an arrow pattern with them. But instead of that, I'm actually just going to use a piece of the honeycomb paper as well. Just trimming it up again. I like to have pieces like this in that vellum, in a 12x12 sheet, I keep a lot of these different layering papers in there to use at different times. I have some fabric papers in there, or like linen papers, as well as lots of vellum and cut apart sheets, and cuts like this silhouette cut in there, so I can continue to use them. So I'm inking up this. I have the I love you on one side, and then I have the little house on the other side. Well, I tried it at first with the Versamark, and it totally did not work. So I actually put up my Memento ink here, and I'm just stamping that little house there. It's got a house with a little heart in it, so I'm stamping it there on the corner of that tag. And I did, as you saw, I put a little strip of that red down there in that cluster at the bottom to just kind of, again, pull it all together and make it seem like it's cohesive. It's not totally random. Because there's not a whole lot on here, I did not add a whole lot of embellishment. I wanted to make sure that the papers and the colors all fit well. So I'm using my Tim Holtz ruler here just to help me figure out my title here. And it's going to be, at first I was going to put the entire thing in these big letters, but it just ends up being too big. So it's going to end up being just the words way and heart in these glitter stickers, and I didn't have enough. So I'm looking here, I'm trying to figure out, okay, I did not have enough Y's, so I'm going to use this. Well, I did have one Y. Oh, because I'm sitting here trying to figure out way to my heart. Sorry, I had a moment. I'm trying to figure out how to spell way to my heart, and since I only had one Y, I had two X's. So to make the Y's look the same, I just took the two X's and I'm cutting off one corner so it looks like, the two Y's are the same. But now it's too big to fit there, and it looks just like a whole bunch of letters and not necessarily a title. So I'm changing it. I'm going to go ahead and put heart here. Well, I thought about it and then I decided to wait. So I'm going through my alpha stickers here, and these are just the stickers, not the thickers that I keep in this little folder. But I've got these are basic gray stickers, and I think I'll put it in the supply list, but I think it's like BAS 3990 or something like that. But I'll put it in the supply list, of course, like I said. So I've got the way, and then I'm going to put to my again in these small basic gray letter stickers, and then it'll have heart again in the glitter alphas, as you will see here. I like to mix up the alphas in my title. I have to figure out a way to use all the random stickers that I have left out of sets. I have them all in my stash still because I haven't figured out a way to use them, and I keep thinking one day I'll have a title that I'll actually need those weird letters, or those uncommon letters, I should say. But I haven't figured it out yet. So I'm going to start to adhere some things down. I used a glue dot, I believe, on the back of that badge to glue it down, and then I'm just using a bit of washi to adhere the honeycomb paper to the back of this big piece. It was the easiest way to make sure that it stayed in place without using some liquid glue or whatnot. And I just want the slightest bit of that red peeping out behind that area. So I kind of have three different clusters. I have this You Make Me Joyful piece at the bottom. I have the little wood banner with the badge. And then in the top left I just have the honeycomb paper, and we'll add something to it in just a moment, but right now I'm going to do my journaling, and it's just going to be a small bit of journaling, and it just says Aunt Wanda and Calen at the North Carolina State Fair, October 2011. There wasn't much journaling to do. There's not really much of a story. It's just we go to the state fair every year, and this is just a photo of this year. It's kind of a tradition that we do. Wanda and I really love it. Jill comes a lot of the time. She'll end up coming too, and my mom comes a lot. But Wanda and I have always loved it. I think it started when Wanda was in college. We started liking it so much. So at the last minute, I decided to use some Mr. Huey's and do some ink splatter just to add a bit more interest, and I'm going to do it in the 3 different areas that I have those clusters that I just mentioned. In the top left corner, around this You Make Me Joyful piece. And I'm just using a piece of scrap paper to cover that up since it is already adhered to the page, to the layout. And then I'm going to put it over here right below where the wood veneer and the journaling is. I'm doing a pretty decent amount of sprinkle there, and then I realized I did it too high, so I had to come down and do some more. So it looks kind of crazy right here, but actually a lot of that will be covered up. There we go. The thing I've noticed about the Mr. Huey's, especially on solid cardstock, it definitely soaks in. So sometimes you have to add a lot, and then it kind of fades out. But I wanted it to be not just a subtle sprinkling, but a definite sprinkling of the ink. So that's why I went back and added some more in the top left corner. So just to add some final details, I'm going to use a white gel pen to do the dash lines all around the entire layout. Alright, I'm just finishing up the dash lines here. I skipped ahead a bit so you didn't have to watch the entire thing. And as you can see, since that joyful paper overlaps the bottom of the page, the dash lines obviously don't go there. So I'm just laying the major piece back on the page, and I was debating about trimming it slightly shorter because the dash lines would be covered with the way it is. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm taking off probably about 3/8 of an inch, almost a half of an inch, just so it fits right inside those 2 dash lines on either side. Had a couple layers there, so I wanted to make sure they all trimmed up evenly. Alright, putting my wood veneer banner back on. Alright. Just taking a look at it one final time, it looks like it needs something else to me, so I am actually going to pull out all of my enameled outs to see what works. These red ones from this set actually fit almost perfectly with the red in the paper. So I'm just putting one in each of the 3 embellishment areas, and that is it. And I'm just moving that one to its final place, and I believe that is it for this layout. I'm just taking one final look at it to be sure, and I'm going to adhere this down, but I'm actually going to put it on this foam tape to give it a slight dimension. This is not as thick as foam dots would be, but it's enough to give it just a little bit dimension off the page. I like to use this instead of foam, like foam squares or whatnot. On larger pieces, it's a better thing, just because you don't have to use so many of them, and it still gives it a lot of dimension without having parts of your paper, sink down. I'm not sure what I was doing, but I'm just going to use my grid mat to line this up so it's somewhat even. It's not a big deal if it's not real even. I just wanted to make sure it looked straight. Alright, and there is my final layout. Thanks for joining me today. See my blog at www.designbymelody.com for an actual supply list. Thank you.